What if you can? My friends, that's the question that splits the timid from the triumphant. The moment you believe it's possible, you've already seized half the victory. Within you lies a power so vast, so untapped, it waits only for your command. Doubt whispers, what if you fail? But faith roars, what if you fly? Act on that belief, and the world bends to your will. 1. Belief is the foundation of all achievement. 2. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. 3. Your mind responds to what you feed it. Feed it possibility. 4. The greatest limitations are the ones you accept. 5. Action turns what if into I did. Belief is the foundation of all achievement, and without it, even the greatest talents and brightest minds fall into quiet failure, their potential never truly awakened. Imagine a man with dreams in his heart and a fire in his soul, yet crippled by the chains of doubt. How far could he possibly go? Not far at all, because no matter how sharp his skills or how grand his ambitions, without belief, he becomes like a ship with no wind in its sails, drifting aimlessly in the vast ocean of life. But the moment a man begins to believe in himself, truly believe, deep in the marrow of his bones, something remarkable happens. A light switches on. The world starts to open up to him in ways he never imagined. He sees opportunities where others see dead ends. He finds strength where others break down. He moves forward even when the path is uncertain because belief, true belief, acts like a compass guiding him through the fog of fear. Think about every great achievement throughout history, every invention, every masterpiece, every empire built. Each began first with belief. The Wright brothers believed man could fly long before wings were made of metal. Edison believed he could light the world, even after failing thousands of times. They didn't wait for the world to agree with them. They didn't need approval. Their belief was the approval. Their belief was the starting point. And that's where your journey begins too, not with resources, not with connections, not even with luck, but with belief. When a man says, I can, he isn't making a suggestion. He's setting a direction for his entire life. And here's the truth. The subconscious mind takes your belief as instruction. If you believe you're meant for greatness, your mind begins to pull you toward people, situations, and choices that reflect that belief. You begin to act differently. You speak with conviction. You walk with purpose. Others begin to feel your energy, your certainty, and they respond in kind. Opportunities start to knock, not because they weren't there before, but because your belief has tuned your eyes to see them. But belief doesn't just show up, you must cultivate it. You feed it daily with affirmations, with thoughts that uplift, with surrounding yourself with those who dare to dream. You guard it from the poison of pessimism, from the mocking voices of the world, and even from your own inner critic. That voice will try to tell you that you're not ready, that you're not enough, that others are more capable, but belief isn't about proof, it's about decision. It's about saying, I am capable, long before the evidence is there, and sticking to it until the evidence begins to appear. It's about seeing the mountain and knowing in your heart that you were born to climb it. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, you'll fall, but belief turns every setback into a stepping stone. It doesn't deny difficulty. It defies defeat. So if you want to change your life, stop looking outward for permission and start looking inward for belief. Build it like a muscle. Use it even when it feels shaky. Speak life over your dreams even when no one else claps for you. Because belief is contagious. When you carry it boldly, others start to catch it too. They begin to see something in you that inspires something in them, and that's how movements begin. That's how revolutions are born. That's how ordinary people achieve extraordinary things, not through guarantees, but through the quiet, unshakable power of belief. So wherever you are right now, no matter how stuck, how unsure, how small you may feel, know this: belief is still available to you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need all the answers. You just need to take that first step with conviction. Say it to yourself right now, I believe in me. Let it rise up like a roar inside you. Let it drown out the fear, the shame, the memory of past failures, because those things don't define you. Your belief does, and every single day you choose to believe again, you're building the foundation for something greater. So ask yourself, what if you can? What if the only thing standing between you and your dream is the belief that it's possible? What if everything you've ever wanted is waiting on the other side of that single decision? Because it is, and once you begin to believe that with every fiber of your being, life will begin to rise up and meet you, the right doors will open, the right people will show up. And you'll look back one day and realize that everything changed. Not when your circumstances changed, not when you got your big break, but the moment you finally believed you could. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will, and the saddest part is most people don't even realize it until it's far too late, until they are sitting alone with their regrets, haunted by the things they never dared to do, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't believe they could. Doubt doesn't show up loudly like a storm. It sneaks in like a whisper, subtle and poisonous, planting seeds of uncertainty in the corners of your mind, watering them with fear and hesitation until they grow into towering walls that keep you from ever taking a single bold step. It tells you you're not good enough, not ready enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough, and worst of all, it convinces you that trying and failing is worse than not trying at all. But that's the greatest lie of all time, because failure, real failure, is just a lesson wrapped in temporary pain. A stepping stone that strengthens your resolve, while doubt is a slow death that eats away your courage from the inside out and leaves you paralyzed before you've even begun. Think about how many dreams were buried, not by circumstances, but by the quiet voice that said, "What if I'm not enough?" How many books were never written, businesses never launched, songs never sung, lives never truly lived, not because the dreamers lacked talent or ideas or resources, but because they let that inner fear hold the reins. And here's the truth. Doubt is natural, but surrendering to it is a choice. Everyone feels doubt. The greatest minds, the boldest leaders, the most successful people you can think of, they all faced that gnawing voice at some point. The difference is they didn't let it decide their future. They acknowledged it, stared it down, and acted anyway. You see, doubt has power only when you feed it. When you entertain its voice, when you replay the worst-case scenarios, when you shrink yourself to fit other people's expectations, you give it roots. But when you move in spite of it, when you dare to speak up, step out, risk looking foolish for something you believe in, you take that power back. You reclaim your life, because here's something most people never understand. Failure is not your enemy. Failure is your teacher, your sculptor, the fire that sharpens your blade. Every stumble, every mistake, every time you fall short, it's refining you, toughening you, preparing you for the strength you'll need at the next level. Doubt, on the other hand, teaches you nothing. It offers no wisdom, no growth. Just fear, just stagnation. It keeps you small. It makes you overthink, hesitate, overanalyze until the moment's gone and the opportunity has passed. And then what? Then comes regret, the cruel companion of those who let doubt win. Regret doesn't shout either. It whispers just like doubt, but colder, sharper. It asks, what if you had tried? What could your life have been? And it doesn't leave you alone. It lingers, quietly reminding you of what you didn't do. So if you're standing on the edge of a dream, feeling unsure, hear this clearly. You're not supposed to feel ready. Readiness is a myth sold to the timid. The truth is, no one ever feels fully prepared. The leap always comes before the wings. You grow into the version of yourself who can handle the dream by daring to pursue it, not by waiting for the fear to disappear. Doubt will always be there, it's part of the journey, but it doesn't deserve to drive. Put it in the back seat, acknowledge it, then take action anyway, because every single time you act in the face of doubt, you shrink its power and expand your own. You train your mind to trust you. You build a habit of courage, and courage, not perfection, is what builds dreams. You don't need to be the most talented, the most educated, the most connected. You just need to be the most determined. You just need to want it enough to push through the noise. And let me tell you, that inner fire, that choice to rise up and move forward even when everything inside you is screaming, "What if you fail?" That's what makes the difference between those who live fully and those who simply exist. Don't let your potential die in the prison of your own mind. Don't let doubt sit on the throne where your belief belongs. You have something inside you that the world needs. Maybe it's a story, a solution, a movement, a message, a mission, but you'll never know what it could become unless you step out in faith. Let the world laugh, let them doubt you, let the voice in your head tremble. But do not let any of it stop you. The pain of trying and failing is nothing compared to the pain of wondering what might have been. You don't get this life back. Every day you hesitate, a piece of your dream withers. So plant your feet, lift your chin, and take the step. Doubt might still be there, whispering its usual tune, but let your actions scream louder. Let your courage be contagious, because once you start moving, once you stop feeding fear and start fueling faith, you become unstoppable. You begin to see yourself differently. You start to feel the power that's been lying dormant inside you all along, and soon you realize the truth that sets you free, that your dream never needed the absence of doubt. It only needed the presence of your decision. So go on, chase that thing that keeps you up at night. Build the vision, take the shot, write the book, start the journey. Let the world watch you turn what if into what is, because doubt only wins when you stop. But when you rise up in spite of it, when you keep going, when you choose belief over fear, that's when magic happens. That's when dreams come alive. Your mind responds to what you feed it possibility, and it will begin to shape a life that mirrors the very thoughts you plant within it, day in and day out, whether you're aware of it or not. And that's where the real secret lies, not in talent, not in luck, not even in timing, but in daily diet of thoughts, beliefs, and images you allow to marinate in your consciousness, shaping your emotions, directing your actions, and ultimately determining the quality of your life. The truth is, your mind is like a garden, and every thought is a seed. Some seeds are weeds, wild and choking, full of fear, doubt, limitation, negativity, past failures, and false assumptions, and others are seeds of possibility, hope, abundance, purpose, faith, love, and courage. And whatever you keep planting, watering, and nurturing is what will eventually grow and define the landscape of your life. If you constantly tell yourself, "I can't, I'm not good enough, things never work out for me," guess what happens? Your mind, being the obedient servant it is, says, "All right, I'll prove that true." And it starts filtering out opportunities, shutting down ideas, sabotaging progress, and surrounding you with circumstances that confirm your negative beliefs, not because the world is against you, but because your inner world has convinced your outer world to cooperate with your limitations. And yet, the same exact process works in the opposite direction too, because when you begin to feed your mind the nutrition of possibility, when you speak words like "I can," "I will," "Why not me?" and "This is possible," your mind lights up like a firework display, suddenly alive with ideas, solutions, energy, and a magnetic pull that begins attracting people, resources, and chances that match the new energy you're vibrating on. It's not magic, it's mindset, and mindset is everything because your results in life are simply the echo of your thoughts. Your thoughts form your beliefs control your emotions fuel your decisions, and your decisions create your reality. It's that simple, and yet most people treat their thoughts like accidents, not realizing they're the architects of their own mental homes, constantly constructing the very prison they feel trapped in, when all along they had the power to redesign, repaint, rebuild, and reinvent their mental environment simply by choosing better thoughts. It starts with awareness, catching yourself in those moments when your mind starts spiraling into fear, worry, comparison, or bitterness, and interrupting the pattern by asking one powerful question: is this helping me or hurting me? And if the answer is hurting, then change it, flip it, reframe it, replace it with something that opens the door instead of closing it, something that fuels you instead of draining you, because possibility is a muscle, and the more you practice choosing it, the stronger it gets. Feed your mind books that uplift, conversations that expand, music that inspires, environments that energize, and routines that reinforce your best self. Don't let garbage thoughts run on autoplay in the background of your life, taking up mental bandwidth and dragging you down when you were born to rise. Speak life over yourself daily, not just when you're winning, but especially when you're in the valley, when nothing seems to be working, because that's when it matters most. That's when feeding your mind possibility becomes an act of war against mediocrity. Train your mind to see beyond the immediate, to visualize what doesn't yet exist, to believe in outcomes your eyes can't see but your soul knows are real, because everything you admire in someone else once began as a thought they chose to believe again and again until the world caught up to it. Greatness doesn't start with applause, it starts in quiet moments of decision, when you say to yourself, I will not let fear drive me. I will not let doubt define me. I will not feed my mind limitations when I have the power to feed it faith. And then you act in alignment with that mindset. You walk into rooms differently. You handle setbacks with resilience. You pursue your vision with focus, and life begins to respond differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your mind, when fed possibility, becomes a magnet for growth. It starts to rewire itself, literally forming new neural pathways that make bold thinking easier, make courage your default setting, and make vision your compass. And sure, there will be days when the old thoughts come knocking again, when you feel small or overwhelmed or unworthy, but don't entertain them. Don't sit down and have coffee with your insecurities. Recognize them for what they are. Echoes of an old self that no longer fits the future you're building, and then choose again. Choose thoughts that stretch you, challenge you, invite you to become more, to believe more, to risk more, to live more, because the truth is, your life is not happening to you, it's responding to you, and if you want new results, start with new thoughts, start with new mental fuel, start feeding your mind the kind of content, questions, and conversations that elevate your vibration and remind you who you really are, not some powerless pawn in the game of life, but a creator, a force, a living, breathing miracle with a mind that, when properly fed, becomes unstoppable. The world may try to limit you, but your mind doesn't have to agree, so feed it possibility until it forgets how to doubt. Until it wakes up every day expecting the best, until your dominant thoughts are so focused on growth, purpose, and greatness that anything less than excellence feels out of place. And one day you'll look around at your life, at the people beside you, the mission you're living, the impact you're making, and realize that it all started the moment you decided to feed your mind something better, to turn off the noise of fear and turn on the voice of belief that had been waiting inside you all along. The greatest limitations are the ones you accept, not the ones imposed by your environment, your past, your family, your financial status, or even your current circumstances, because life isn't shaped by the weight of what happens to you. It's shaped by what you choose to believe about it and to Many people walk around imprisoned not by walls but by thoughts, by invisible chains made up of excuses, doubts, fears, and false beliefs handed down by others or picked up through failures, rejections, or temporary setbacks, never realizing that every time they say, "I can't," that's not for people like me, or "I'm not capable." They are agreeing to a limitation that doesn't actually exist outside of their own agreement, and that's the key. Limitations become real the moment you accept them as true, the moment you stop questioning them and start living beneath them, and it happens so subtly, so quietly, that most people don't even realize they're doing it, like a bird raised in a cage who doesn't fly even when the door swings open, not because it lacks wings, but because it has accepted a reality that's no longer true. And this is how powerful the mind is. It will fight to protect what it believes, even if what it believes is the very thing holding you back. And so if you were told you're not smart enough, or strong enough, or you're too old, too young, too late, too early, too different, whatever it may be, and you chose to believe it, then you began to build a life around that belief, adjusting your behavior, shrinking your dreams, censoring your voice, avoiding risks, and living small, all to stay within the boundary of that limitation. But the truth is, those boundaries are self-made, and they can be broken the moment you decide to challenge them, to refuse to accept them as the final say on who you are and what you can become, because the greatest breakthroughs in human history weren't made by people who had no limitations. They were made by people who refused to accept the ones society gave them. People who were told they couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't, and did it anyway. Every time someone told them that's impossible, they heard, "That's your limitation, not mine." And they went on to prove it by pushing, testing, learning, failing, and trying again, not because they were certain they'd succeed, but because they were certain they couldn't accept living inside a lie. And that's what limitations are. Lies dressed up as logic, fears pretending to be facts. And the moment you expose them, the moment you drag them into the light and ask, who says, "Where did this come from? Is this actually true?" you begin to take your power back, because no one can define your limits unless you allow them to, and no circumstance is permanent unless you decide to settle in it. Even your own failures don't get to define you unless you give them that authority, and it's not about being delusional or ignoring reality. It's about understanding that reality is flexible, that what seems fixed can shift the moment your mindset shifts, that what seems unchangeable becomes movable when you bring belief, persistence, and action into the equation, because history is filled with people who shattered the ceiling others told them they'd never reach, not because they had superpowers, but because they had the courage to question the limits they were handed, and that courage lives in you too. You just have to get tired enough of being boxed in, silenced, overlooked, underestimated, and labeled, and instead of internalizing that, use it as fuel, use it as fire, because the moment you stop accepting the limitations around you is the moment you start rewriting the script. And that new script sounds like, "Why not me? Why not now? Who says I can't?" And you stop waiting for perfect timing or validation or permission, and you start moving with what you have where you are, because forward is always a choice, and most of the time, the only thing in your way is the story you keep telling yourself. The story that says you don't have what it takes, that you've failed too many times, that you missed your chance. But those are just echoes of the past trying to keep you stuck, and you don't have to keep rehearsing them. You can choose a new narrative, one where every limitation becomes a challenge to overcome, not a sentence to obey, and that requires you to do the uncomfortable work of looking your beliefs in the eye and asking, is this belief serving the person I want to become? And if the answer is no, you let it go, you replace it, you upgrade it, just like software, because your mind is programmable and every limitation you've accepted was learned, which means it can also be unlearned. And this is where true freedom begins, not in changing your outside world first, but in changing what you accept as possible for you, because once you expand your mind's ceiling, everything else starts to stretch with it. your goals get bigger, your effort gets bolder, your circle gets stronger, and life starts to reflect your new standard, and people might not understand it at first. They might question your sudden boldness, your refusal to shrink, your decision to reach for more, but that's okay, because you're not living by their limitations anymore. You're living by your vision, and vision always looks like rebellion to those who are still imprisoned by doubt. So let them talk, let them misunderstand, and while they do, you keep building, keep rising, keep breaking through, because the only limit that matters is the one you're willing to fight for. And if you refuse to accept the ones that don't serve you, nothing can stop you. Not age, not background, not failure, not lack. Because you'll find a way, you'll create a way, you'll become the kind of person who doesn't wait for the path to appear, but carves it out with fire in your eyes and purpose in your steps. And one day, you'll look back at everything you thought would stop you and realize that it never had any real power. The power was always in your response, in your decision, in your refusal to bow down to invisible fences, and you'll stand taller, not because everything went perfectly, but because you stopped living in a world of I can't, and started building a life around I will. And that shift, that single, invisible, internal shift, is what separates the people who watch their dreams fade from the people who rise up and live them boldly, fully, and without apology, because they understood that the greatest limitations are never out there, they're in here, and once you stop accepting them, you start becoming limitless. Action turns what if into I did. And that's the truth most people miss while they're sitting on their dreams, waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal plan, the absolute certainty that everything will work out. But the truth is, nothing changes until you move, nothing becomes real until you act, and no amount of wishing, visualizing, or hoping can replace the power of one bold step forward, because action is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between potential and progress, between the life you imagine and the life you actually live. You can sit for years thinking about what you want, talking about your goals, researching, preparing, dreaming in full color, but unless you get up and start doing something about it, anything, it all stays locked inside the prison of your mind, where it can never breathe, never grow, never inspire, never touch lives, and worst of all, never set you free. And that's the real tragedy, not that people fail, but that they never even start because they're too afraid of what might go wrong, too stuck in the comfort of overthinking, too paralyzed by the fear of being judged or the fear of falling short. But action is the antidote to fear, and once you begin, even with trembling hands and shaky confidence, you begin to build momentum, and momentum is what transforms hesitation into hunger, fear into fire, and ideas into outcomes, because you can't think your way into greatness. You have to act your way into it, step by step, risk by risk, moment by moment, and every little bit of progress you make, every small win you earn, starts building your belief, starts rewriting the story you tell yourself, and suddenly the dream that once felt distant starts to feel doable, not because the path became easier, but because you became stronger through the very act of moving. And people wait, they stall, they overplan, convincing themselves that they're being smart or cautious, when really they're letting doubt dress up as logic, and it's costing them their future, because time doesn't wait, opportunities don't linger forever, and inspiration, when not acted upon, turns into frustration, into regret, into that heavy what if that haunts you years later when the window has closed and you're left wondering what could have been if only you'd acted when the idea first came alive in you. And sure, action is risky. It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth, it guarantees clarity, it guarantees momentum, and even failure is better than inaction, because at least you gain experience, you learn, you grow, you evolve, and you get one step closer to your breakthrough. Nothing teaches like movement. Reading is good, studying is important, but there comes a time when the only thing left to do is to do, when only real wisdom is gained through doing the work, facing the resistance, pushing past your own limits, and discovering that you are capable of far more than you believed. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be brave enough to start, to move your feet while your heart is Still catching up, to speak before your voice feels strong, to show up even when you feel like an imposter, because action is the cure, the answer, the game changer, and everything you want, everything you dream of, is hiding on the other side of a decision you've been too afraid to make. Maybe it's the book you've been meaning to write, the business idea that keeps tapping your shoulder, the message you know you were born to share, the move you've been delaying because the timing didn't feel right. But what if the timing never feels perfect? What if the feeling only comes after the action, not before? What if the door opens only after you knock, not while you wait from across the street? What if clarity comes through doing, not through thinking? What if the exact person you wish you could become is hiding in the version of you that starts today, right now, right where you are with what you have, no matter how small or messy or uncertain it looks? Because that's how everything big begins, with something small, with a first attempt, with a rough draft, with an imperfect step taken anyway. Every success story you admire started with someone who decided to stop talking about it and start doing something about it. Someone who decided they'd rather fail trying than live with the regret of wondering, and that's the mindset that separates the dreamers from the doers. Not talent, not background, not connections, just the guts to act, the courage to keep going, and the discipline to keep showing up again and again, no matter what. And don't fall into the trap of thinking your actions have to be huge or dramatic, because consistency beats intensity. One step a day, one call, one page, 1 hour, one choice made with intention can shift everything over time. Progress compounds, results build, and soon you wake up living the reality you once only imagined, all because you chose to act when it was easier to wait, to build when it was safer to wish, and to leap when it was more comfortable to stay put. The question isn't whether or not your dreams are possible. The real question is whether or not you're willing to act on them. Bet on yourself, to move through the discomfort and into the unknown, trusting that action will teach you, guide you, refine you, and reward you in ways that thought alone never could. And the beautiful thing is, action doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand you know the whole path. It just needs you to move, to decide, to do what you can with what you've got, knowing that momentum will take care of the rest, and the moment you begin, the world begins to respond, because doors don't open for people who wait. They open for people who knock, who push, who try, who act, who dare to live, rather than just dream. So whatever idea you've been holding, whatever change you've been craving, whatever purpose has been tugging at your soul, let this be your wake-up call to stop overthinking and start doing, because the power has always been in your hands, and the difference between what if and I did is just one step, one move, one bold action away.